Welcome to Ripstop on the Record, the podcast for makers, by makers, where we talk about all things MYOG. Brought to you by Ripstop by the Roll. I think it's good, right?
Yeah, I think that was a good take.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Ripstop on the Record. I'm Jameson.
And I'm Carter.
In this episode, we are talking about the real cost of MYOG. Do you really save money? If so, how much? And what would custom projects really cost if you were to put it all together? We're going to talk about all that and more in a kind of fun multi-level approach of how to save money and how to not save money if that's what you're into here in this episode in just a minute.
And if you're interested to know how much money Jameson has burned through on his highly custom gear, we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, this episode was kind of damning for me. I hadn't really put spreadsheets together of what some of these projects cost until now, but they don't exist, and that's important too.
Yeah, coming up soon, we're going to be at AT Trail Days. Jameson, tell us about it.
Thanks, Carter. Good segue. Yeah, so in May, I believe it's the 18th of May.
15th through the 18th.
15th to the 18th, we'll be heading up to Damascus, Virginia for AT Trail Days. This is a really fun event. There's all sorts of cottage companies there, including a couple that will be at our booth. So if you want to come hang out with us, chat with other makers, chat with us about fabric and this episode if you want, but also you can talk to the wonderful people at UGQ, Walhalla, Nashville Pack, Red Paw Pack. All of those makers and businesses will be at our booth with us, chatting, hanging out, have a good time. But there's all sorts of fun stuff at Trail Days, so you should definitely come check it out.
Yeah, we'll have some awesome raffle giveaways. And one of those giveaway items is actually a week-long stay at our GM Jason's home in Mebane, North Carolina. So everybody show out. We know I probably just added about 100 people that are going to show up now. So
yeah, I mean,
he's really excited to host you guys.
I think we had like thousands of dollars of gear in like raffle gear alone, but now it's like a $10,000 giveaway now at the wonderful stay at Casa Smith.
He makes a great steak.
Yeah, I've heard it's quite good. But yeah, as always, please let us know what you think of the episode and the podcast in general. Maybe you can like or comment or rate, review maybe.
And perhaps do it favorably.
Yeah, if that's what you're into. But this genuinely helps the podcast. It's not just something that goes away, but whenever people rate the episodes, it helps other makers and other people interested in the same topics that you are find the episode. Not to mention, it helps us tell Jason that we should continue to do this.
All right, let's get into it.
So as we teased in the intro, Carter and I are going to break down the price differences between making and buying your own gear. A primary reason that we've heard, and even why I started making gear at all, is that people want to save money. There's kind of this enticement that if you purchase the fabric and make it yourself, you can save some. And although that is often a great benefit, there are other reasons that people might want to make their own gear that aren't related to budget almost at all. Now, with that being said, we will give you tips on how you can save money through DIY, but cost savings aren't necessarily everyone's top priority, and we're going to talk about those as well. So we're going to attack this topic with a multi-level approach. We'll kind of talk about no matter where you are in the DIY spectrum, we'll kind of talk about what you can expect to spend, and you can fluctuate between those. None of these are fully set in stone, as if you don't have to be only a level 1 maker or level 3 maker, but you can kind of go back and forth as you wish.
You know, we're breaking these up by tiers, but it certainly doesn't mean that if you haven't lost money making something, then you're somehow like not a good maker. I have plenty of friends who are better makers than me, and the main reason why they are making gear is because they're outfitting their whole family for a camping trip, and buying 8 hammocks versus making them is always going to be cost effective, and that's the reason that they do it. So keep that in mind as well. This is more about the reasons why people make their own gear, and one of those being budget, and we want to kind of show that to you so that on the other side of things, you don't have this expectation that if you're going to make like 8 DCF tarps that you're going to save a bunch of money, because that's not the case. But there are great reasons why you would want to make your own DCF tarp.
Yeah. There's a little story to get us into it. What I'm about to say almost negates some of what we're going to say later on, but it's just kind of an interesting perspective because the truth is the answer is that it just depends. Like, will you save money? We get this answer a lot. Like, how do I save money DIYing? We'll give you some tips on that. But the answer is it just depends. Like, it depends on so many things. So, the story I was going to say is I first started making because I was about to run a 50K and I really wanted to make a pack for it. It was a 50K in the mountains and I didn't exactly know how to pack. So, I was going to make a pack that was frankly bigger than I needed, but I wanted like a 10-liter running vest. Ultimately, I did save money because I bought like a $30 vest on Amazon. I cut the straps off and I sewed that into a pack that I made with Hyper D300. I think all in, I probably spent about 50 or $60 to make that. And that was a lot cheaper than the Black Diamond Distance 8 that I was looking at buying, which I think it was about $150 at the time. So that is a way that I was a beginner. I really didn't know how to sew or what I was doing, but I still saved quite a bit of money by making that way. Now, you started sewing kind of for different reasons. Did you intentionally like start out to save money, or did you have a different motivation when you first started?
I would say that my motivation was pretty much it was definitely multifaceted, right? The main reason why I wanted to make my own gear was because I wanted to make my own gear,
Yeah,
which is also kind of how you are, right? It's like you wanted to do it because you like making things, you like being creative, you want to put something together. But I was super into hammock camping. Well, I was starting to get super into hammock camping about 12, I think 12 or 13 years ago. And hammocks are one of the easiest things to make. And a lot of people on the hammock forums were showing all these cool ways you can make your own hammock. And so I wanted to do that. I wanted to try different hammock fabrics. And I was also poor. So you combine those, and it was great. It's like, hey, not only is this the only way that I could get into hammock camping, but it's also the way that I want to do it. So it kind of just aligned.
yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's talk about the money savings first. So, like we mentioned a second ago, we've kind of broke these into three different levels, ascending through like the least amount of money to the most amount of money that you could spend. So, if you're looking to save money, we think the best way potentially to save money is through being a kit maker. So, this is level one. Carter, intro us to like what the kit maker is and what level one sort of is.
Yeah. And again, maybe we'll frame these a little bit differently. It's not necessarily that you only make kits. This is more of the most obvious way to save money. Like, for instance, just because you know how to make a super custom backpack doesn't mean that you also don't need a roll top dry bag.
Yeah,
So it doesn't really matter the level that you're at. It's more, we offer laser cut kits with video instructions, and they're using the top end technical fabrics in the world. And you can directly, I mean, the reason why we design them is so that you can get into making your own stuff, but also because it will save you money. So our kits are designed around that. So if you were to, let's take like the pre-cut Hex 12 Tarp kit, right? That's quite a bit of fabric. We've already laser cut the entire thing for you, and that cost about $80 if you include seam seal. Let's say 85, but you will not find a 1.1 ounce Silpoly cottage made tarp. Now it'll probably be better than the first time you make one, but your tarp will definitely work for less than probably 150, $180. So that's a very obvious direct savings where you're making kind of a simple thing or a kit where all the items are included. You know exactly how much that costs, and you can go to a cottage website or an ultralight gear website and look at basically a different version of that, like a zipper wallet, and say, hey, if I buy this, I'm going to save $5 or I'm going to save $8. So that's the most, this tier is the first one because it's the easiest and most direct. Like the kits are pretty simple. There aren't, when you're buying a kit, there's not customization because we've procured all the stuff for you. So
yeah.
yeah, if you're buying a kit, if you want to save money and make yourself some awesome gear, the best place to start is a kit by far because you don't have to really think about anything. We just give it to you and you make it.
We've said this a lot, but we are not scientists and we're certainly not mathematicians, not I at least. But according to our rough math, making or buying a kit and making that will save you, it's going to be roughly between like 30 and 200% cheaper, depending on the item and the kit and where you're getting your stuff from. So that's kind of it's a really broad spectrum, but this is kind of true for kits because something like a zip wallet, it's going to be pretty cheap no matter where you are, but if you buy it from us, it might be $8. You buy it from somewhere else, it might be 12. It's still, that is still like a 40% savings or something, but that's going to increase on something like Carter mentioned, like a tarp. A couple other examples of just kind of comparable items that we get asked about. Our bear bag kit, it's a really popular item for people that are hiking and camping. Our kit is $48. That's made with Dyneema composite fabric. It's made with Zing It. It's like a really high quality bear line. You're going to buy something like this for $65 to $70 if you get it from a cottage company. One thing I do want to say about all this is not an anti-cottage company podcast at all, or anti-buying gear. Both Carter and I buy gear from places all the time. Part of what we want to talk about, like we mentioned, is the cost of MYOG and being real with people about that. But then also, something that I've learned throughout making gear is understanding and appreciating the cost that things really are. Since I started making gear, I have such an appreciation for what it takes to make stuff and how expensive it is for companies to make things. And I don't gawk at prices as much anymore. It doesn't mean that you become independently wealthy, you can afford everything, but when you realize how much time it takes to make something and the materials you have to purchase to make them, you really start to appreciate what companies do and what cottage companies had to go through to make their products.
Yeah, we do our best to work with them and provide the materials, but at the end of the day, these materials are really expensive and they're really high end. So the margins that cottage makers are working within are very slim. So I know whenever you look at that tent and you see $650, $700, you're like, oh my gosh, I would never pay that. Well, we'll get to that later on, but the chances that you can buy that, design that tent, and make it for the same price, pretty unlikely. So
Yeah, depends so much on the product that we'll get into. One other thing I want to say for kits and about kits, one of the ways that a lot of makers end up spending more money on stuff is they accidentally ruin something, or their skills maybe are don't meet the goal that they have in mind. I want to encourage everybody to take risks on make stuff that you don't think you can do, because you will learn a lot. But kits are really nice because they help you hone your skills for those projects later on at a really low barrier to entry. By working with our kits, you're going to learn how to install zippers, you'll do box bottoms, you'll learn how to do rolled hems. You're going to learn all sorts of techniques that are really beneficial for when you're trying to take on other projects in the future. And becoming a more refined maker will help you save money on other projects, because you can calculate your projects more cleanly and assume that you're going to get stitches right and not have to buy many extra yards to account for potential mistakes. So dialing in your technique and making sure that you're becoming a refined maker is really important part of the kit process that we've worked into those kits to help you kind of ascend the skill ladder that will make you a more effective maker later on.
yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. It's pretty basic, right? When you're comparing prices of making your own stuff versus buying it from somewhere, the easiest way to compare that and the most direct way to see the money savings is to buy a kit, or what we'll get into in a minute is make simpler items or use patterns. So,
Yeah.
so this second tier we're calling patterns or simpler designs. This just means maybe you're buying a Learn MYOG pattern, or you're designing a backpack, but it's a simpler backpack. We're not talking about you have this. I used an analogy yesterday, I think, when James and I were talking about this, but you want to build a backpack that fits your ferret, and you need the pocket to be ferret shaped, and it's like this perfectly. That we're not talking about that. We're talking about, hey, I want to through hike the AT, and I'd like to make my own pack and save some money while doing so. That's the type of backpack that we're talking about. 5 panels, large mesh, 2 side pockets, shoulder straps, that sort of deal. So maybe that's actually might be the one of the examples. Another one might be like the Learn MYOG Porter Duffel. This is something where you basically have full, beautiful instructions. You don't have to design anything. You're buying the pattern, and then a duffel bag is actually not that much material. So you can buy the pattern and the materials, which ends up being about $105. If you were to buy something similar from a cottage place using technical fabrics like X-Pack or DCF or any of those materials, it's going to be between 160 and $200 for sure. So that's another. Even though you're not buying a kit, it's pretty. still a pretty direct translation because it's a simpler, smaller item that doesn't have custom printed with your dog's face on it, which would be awesome. This is kind of the second tier where you're not buying a kit, but you are still able to pretty easily save money because you aren't adding a ton of features, but you are getting a lot of value for what you're making.
Yeah, our back of the napkin math says that the pattern and kind of simplistic gear design could save you between 10 and 40%. Again, this all depends on the project and where you're shopping and stuff like that. And these numbers are comparing to other high quality gear. We're not necessarily saying that you're going to save 10 to 40% on an Amazon duffel.
Yeah, that's a really good
I
point.
think everybody knows that you can get a duffel there for like 30 bucks and the materials might be good and it might be made with child labor and you have no idea. But we're comparing to other like cottage and like high quality outdoor gear. Just to be clear.
They're older children though.
Oh, good. Yeah. So they get. Never mind. Yeah. So some other projects that we're going to compare here. Alpha Hoodie. This is a really fun one. This is another Learn MYOG pattern. That's fantastic. Good directions. You're going to pay $20 for the pattern. You're going to pay about 50 to 60 on materials, and you're going to buy an Alpha Direct hoodie from somebody for about $100. So all in, if you make that, you're going to be looking at roughly $70 to $80, and you're going to pay about 100. So that's one where you need to decide if you want to save 20 bucks or not. It can be really cool because you can do some customization. You can tailor the fit a bit more to you, or if you buy one, it's going to be what it is. That's another example.
Oh, one thing to point out here is that we are including the price of the Learn MYOG pattern.
Yeah.
That's not obviously that's something that you get to keep. So if you were to make two or make another one later, then the cost you're saving even more. So instead of 20% savings, you're going up to 40 or 60% because now you already have the pattern. You don't need to buy that again. That was 20 or $30 of the overall price. So that's something to keep in mind too for cost savings. Like we'll get into accumulating fabric and stuff later, but for now, since we're including patterns here, just think about even if you I don't know. I was trying to think of another good example, but that's probably the best one is you get to reuse those patterns and that's not an insignificant amount of cost if you're buying a really nice pattern like the
Yeah.
Learn MYOG ones.
No, that is a great point. That cost gets amortized over every project that you make from then on out. I did really poorly in accounting actually, so I'm not going to pretend like I know those terms. But for those that didn't do accounting, basically it just means that cost becomes less and less every time. So if you make 4 Alpha Direct hoodies, divide that by $20, then you're only really paying like $5 per hoodie. Then,
That was really good math, dude,
thank you.
for a homeschool.
I chose a good number. It's easy to divide, but yeah, that's a good point about the patterns. Also, just I'll plug a product of ours while we're here. We have the paper pattern that you can buy, but we also have digital, like the bundle pattern, which you get the paper pattern and the digital pattern. That could be a really good option for people because then you're able to use that pattern however you wish because you have the digital, like the PDF. So you can use that again. You can get different sizes and make it for different family members and stuff like that. I want to go over a couple other projects that are kind of interesting comparisons here. Another Learn MYOG pattern are the DS shorts. Again, you're going to spend $20 for the pattern. Materials are going to be about $30 if you get some nylon Taslan. Some of these accessories are kind of difficult to kind of account for always. But one of the nice things about the pattern is that if you buy a pattern, then it tells you exactly what you need and it gives you the material list. It's kind of one of the benefits of a pattern or a kit is that it takes the guesswork out of what you need to buy. I mean, there's going to be a specific list. If it's a kit, then you're going to just get it. If it's a pattern, then it'll give you the exact list of things that you need. So you're not buying excess stuff or not accumulating things that you aren't going to use. You know exactly what you have to get.
And one thing that we're constantly working on, but I think for most of the Learn MYOG patterns, at least, you should be able to buy all of it at the same time from us to save on shipping costs. As we bring on more and more patterns, there are more and more materials that I need to source and bring on. So it's not perfect yet. But for a lot of the ones that we're talking about, you can buy everything, including interfacing and other stuff like that, directly from us all at once.
Definitely. So on the shorts example, you're going to spend about $50 on making a pair of DS shorts for the first time that you make them. And if you were to buy, let's say, Patagonia baggies, which are a great pair of shorts and what our nylon Taslan is built after, or kind of designed similarly to, you're going to spend about $65 to $70 on those baggies. So you might save 20 to 30% on those shorts for the first time that you make it.
I think that's another great example of how much more money you can save by reusing the pattern. Because the great thing about shorts or baggies is that they come in a ton of colors. Well, once you have that pattern, you can make 5 pairs of shorts, and that you can wear that all winter long.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're a shorts and winter person,
Of course. Yeah, you got to be bold to do that.
or you have to be extremely stylish.
We've mentioned a lot of Lauren MYOG patterns. They are fantastic. I've made a lot of the patterns that he has, just like seemingly everybody. But we do carry a lot of other patterns. There's good companies like Bag Buff on our website. There's Green Pepper pattern out there. There's a lot of good pattern makers that exist, and you can check all those pattern makers out. Maybe ones that or definitely ones that I didn't mention. But there's a lot of different pattern makers that are out there, not just Lauren MYOG. But I've happened to make these patterns, so I know how these go very intimately, and they're ones that I can personally kind of back up and would confirm are good.
Yeah, another example outside of using patterns is like I mentioned at the top, like just making simpler things, right? Let's say you want to make a fanny pack like the kit that we offer, but you want to use a different material that we don't offer. Okay, well, it's very similar. You might spend a little more time, obviously, because you need to design it yourself, but you're still making something that just really needs about a half of yard of two fabrics, right, and some webbing. So there's not much complexity in that, but it's a little bit more difficult, and there could be some more mistakes that end up costing more than if you were just buying the kit. Same goes for the backpack I was talking about. You can make a simple backpack like that for around $100, maybe depending on the material, 150 if you were getting a little fancy. But you could compare that to something like the DCF packs that you see people through hiking with that are basically a tube of material in 3 pockets. Those are anywhere from 280 to $400. You start to get into some more fancy stuff, which is going to be our third tier. But for a basic like frameless through hiking backpack, you can still save a lot of money. But there is a chance that you mess it up or whatever.
One other thing I want to mention for level 2 or the second tier, if you're buying kits, then you're getting exactly what you need for that kit, and for the most part, nothing more. Once you start making patterns and kind of making simple items, you will start to accumulate products. So, for example, if you buy certain components from us, they're going to come in a bag of 12. You might only need 2 or 4 for that pattern. So now you have 10 or 8 left over. This is a really good place to be, and why it's really important to plan your projects out, because if you can make many projects with one bag, then that also disperses the cost many times over. So for example, if you buy a couple yards of nylon Taslan, then you can use some of those extra scraps of Taslan for the pocket of your next pair of shorts, and you need less the next time. Maybe you bought a bunch of flat elastic. Well, you didn't use all the flat elastic. You can use some of that on the next pair of shorts. Once you start accumulating these items, you can start reusing them in other ways. And it's important if you're looking to save money. If you don't care as much, then obviously you don't need to do this. But if you're looking to save money, then definitely be mindful about thinking of multiple projects and trying to buy things that you can use across many projects, because that's definitely a way that you'll be able to use scrap, have less just kind of space taken up in your home for these extra materials that you have, but then also kind of disperse the cost across many areas.
Another great example of that is going back to talking about like a simple backpacking like frameless bag. We sell the stuff in the smallest sizes that we can that makes sense. So you only have to buy like a foot of spacer mesh or a half yard of X pack. Depending on your design, you're still going to have leftovers. It's the perfect opportunity to make some more accessories to continue. If you're looking to make basically your own set of gear to go camping, then you can make shoulder strap pockets. You could make a fanny pack. You can make hip belt pockets, ditty bags, all that type of stuff.
I don't think we can say that anymore.
those small what's another word? Accessory bags,
Oh yes.
not ditty bags.
No.
We don't say that.
Top kits.
Yeah, toiletries, first aid, any of that small format stuff you could likely make from, the cost that we talked about. That's only for the backpack or only for the duffel. Usually, you're going to be able to make some other stuff too, so that also helps you save some money.
Definitely.
But now we've taught you quite a bit about
Hope so.
I almost said we taught you about making money. This isn't the finance bros, Ripstop by the roll. No, we're not good at finance. Anyways, At least I'm not. I don't know if you are.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say like the company's fine at finance, but like you and
Oh yeah, I
I,
didn't mean the
maybe
company. Yeah.
maybe you and I aren't the finance people to be talking. But all right, level 3 is like the custom gear maker. And just one other thing I want to reiterate one more time, probably not the last time. You can jump between any of these categories. You don't have to be one or the other. You don't need to be all one or all the other. All of this depends so much on what you want to do, and that's totally fine. We are here for any version of maker that you want to be. You don't have to fit in any one of these categories. It's not a box.
Well, I also don't. I know we've like kind of put these into categories by like what type of maker you are, but that's not. This is just the simplest way for us to say how much money you're going to save
Yeah.
and talk about the reasons why people might want to make their own gear, from cost savings to full customization, which is where we're going to wrap things up, I guess. Here, this is our final tier. So what we're talking about here is basically the ferret analogy that I used earlier, where I'll change from ferret. Let's say you have a really cool cycling helmet and you want to make a backpack that works for work and it also is for pickleball, and you want to be able to perfectly fit your cycling helmet on the outside. So you have like one bag to do everything. Well, you could buy a bag off the rack that maybe does two of those, but you're not going to find something that has a spot for a helmet and a custom pickleball paddle sleeve, right? That's not a thing. It's not going to have a pocket that's perfectly sized for your like mat for your iPad in the front that also has your dog's name embroidered on it. What we're talking about here is basically taking things to the point where you want to make something because it's something that you cannot buy. And this is the category where it's a lot more difficult to say that you're going to save money, because the reason that you're making is to have something that's totally individualized to you. And your concern, no, I'm not saying that you have to spend $1 million, but the number one concern is no longer saving every penny. It's, hey, I need this perfect buckle. Ripstop by the roll, unfortunately, doesn't have this titanium anodized G hook that I want, that's blue and purple sunrise. I'm going to go out and search this and buy it, and it costs $25 for one, but it's going to be the perfect thing on my wife's backpack.
Yeah, this is this is sort of the tier that I exist in right now. And just to be clear to everyone listening, I know I get material more accessibly than anybody else probably in the world right
Yeah,
now.
you piece of garbage.
But I also do buy stuff.
He does.
For example, sorry Kyle and Jason, I bought stuff from Big Duck Canvas a couple weeks ago because my wife wanted a new work bag. So like I bought everything she needed. I used almost nothing that we carry here. I did use some Omni tape. I used 2 cam snaps. I think those are the only things that we actually carry on that. But like I do actually buy real materials, and this is kind of where I am. Where like my wife wanted a specific work bag where she could have her laptop, her portable monitor. She wanted this specific lunchbox to fit, and she wanted to have like a cup holder in the bag. So like super custom, right? That's kind of the tier that we're talking about here, where you need to make something that doesn't exist. More often than not, our back of the napkin math says you will not save money here at all. I'll give you some numbers on some projects that I've made. This I'm scared to talk about it. I'll give you some numbers of what my material would have cost for some of these projects, and you almost definitely won't save money. However, for example, this tote bag, I all in spent about $80 on the materials for this tote bag, and I looked it up. A wax canvas tote bag with internal pockets that are not customized. I almost said customized.
It's
That are
so customized, boy.
that are not customized are upwards of $150 to $200. So this is a unique case where that was totally custom for Catherine. The whole thing was made only for her. It's actually pretty neat. One thing I did is the reason there's Omni tape on there is that the whole liner it can be removed from the bag, and you can wash the liner of the bag. That doesn't exist. So did I save money from buying one? Yes, and also there's not a price point on that because that bag doesn't exist. Like you cannot buy something like that with those specific pockets that fit her notebook and her lunchbox and stuff like that. So I spent less than I would have, but also that thing doesn't exist anyway. So did I save money or spend money? Like in my mind, I made money because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, as we're talking about this, it does make me kind of rethink a little bit. It's not necessarily that you're going to lose money or break even. Sometimes that is the case, and in this tier, that is the most likely. If you make a few concessions and buy something that's ready made, like maybe there's a backpack that's 99% what you want, but they don't have the exact color. Maybe you have to concede that, and then you would save some money versus making it yourself. But the real thing is, what we're comparing here, or another way to think about it is with Jameson's tote bag. The only way that you're going to get exactly without making it yourself would be to try to find a contract sewer and designer that their job is to make stuff fully custom, and though that is not cheap, and it shouldn't be cheap, but that's basically the only way that you could buy something quote unquote off the shelf that's fully custom like that, is that you would have to find a boutique maker that's willing to do like individual projects.
One of the costs that we haven't talked about yet is the cost of time. One of the if you're interested in if you're interested in listening to like the philosophy of creating and making stuff, then I would really recommend going back and listening to the episode that we did with Dustin Klein. I'll link it in the description because I really don't remember what episode number it is. But in that episode, Dustin talks about how some people make for the experience, and that's kind of a big that's an important piece for the level 3 makers. Is you're trying to make an item. Don't get me wrong, if I trash the tote bag, I would be really upset. But I have noticed in myself that it's really important for me on a weekly basis to create, to design, to problem solve, and it's a very meditative process that means something to me emotionally and mentally. And that's kind of what you're doing here. Like, this is for the maker that wants to be involved in a project, that wants to have problems that they can solve, to construct something, to use their hands, to use the creative side of their brain. Um, but the time is a legitimate cost, and you have to understand that's something that you're able or willing to do. If you have a demanding job, if you have demanding life, it can be difficult to spend 15 hours on a tote bag. That's a lot of time to put into that. But like I said earlier, it does help you appreciate what those people cost. So like what Carter was mentioning, if you're going to find a boutique person to customize this bag, it's probably going to be a $400 or $500 bag. Yes, they can do it faster, but you're still paying somebody that has a highly specific skill for 10 hours of work. That doesn't cost $10 an hour, $20 an hour. Like, that's someone that is doing something extremely unique with expensive machinery and lots of experience. That's it. Like, that's a real thing that you should be willing to pay for if you can't make it. And that's okay if you don't want to as well. I totally understand that. But it is something to be aware of.
Yeah, another thing I want to say, and sorry for sounding cheesy, is I do recognize also that it's not about whether you want to or not. A
Yeah,
lot of the times, like what we're talking about here is obviously from a place of privilege because of where we work, and we're very handsome, so people give us free stuff.
that's it.
But no, I just wanted to recognize, like, hey, if the most important thing to you is saving money and that's what works best for you and your family, or whatever, we're certainly not saying that you can't also find peace through sewing, like Jameson's talking about. It's
Absolutely.
whatever you're making. We just wanted to we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions every year about, am I going to save money? Or maybe sometimes someone sends us a link and they're like, "Hey, why would I buy this kit if this place is making it for $5 more?" Oftentimes, I'll tell them, "Hey, just go support that company and buy that." I'm not. Of course, I want our company to be successful, but if you're wanting to buy something, if you want to have something soon and you're not interested in the process of making, go support a cottage vendor. But yeah, just wanted to say that a lot of what we're talking about is answering real questions from people that are in all different stages of life and location and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. You can find peace in sewing and making no matter what tier, if you're making kits or making fully custom gear. I definitely don't mean to say that like it's only meditative experience if you're fully customizing that. I don't want to make it sound like that at
yeah, and
all.
you didn't say that. I just wanted to throw that out there. A, because I believe that it's true, and B, I didn't want someone later to, you
Yeah,
know, give us a 1-star review and say these guys are haters
pretentious
against
assholes. I mean,
these guys don't want people to save money. It's like that's
yeah,
not what we're
yeah,
saying. And some people don't find peace in sewing.
yeah.
For instance, our GM Jason, every time he sews, it looks like he just walked out of a sauna for some reason. He's like really just
He's got the ShamWow suit on.
he it has this is an aside, but it has been fun to watch him make stuff because that's more of the previous version of Jason. Although he's pretty busy, he doesn't get too much time to sew. The last few things I've seen that he made were really good, and he is a creative dude. So sorry, Jason, I'm trying not to get fired here.
We're gonna have to bring Jason on the episode sometime. We talk about him so much, and I would imagine 90% of listeners don't have a picture of him or even know his voice.
Well, we were basically forced to do a podcast, one trail days, in a roundtable, and by force I mean I did not want to do it at all, but I was forced to. And Jason was on that one.
Yeah, there's a reason that episode never saw the light of day, and it wasn't because of Jason.
Maybe one day we'll release a very heavily redacted, edited, top secret version of that for fun. If we get like, I don't know, how many listeners do we have right
We
now?
can release that on the RBTR Patreon one day, maybe.
Yeah. Once we have a paywall, but yes, I
Yeah.
would love to have Jason on at some point if he can behave himself.
Yes, of course. One other thing I want to mention with the kind of tier 3 level, I think it's really important if you want to start doing more custom gear that you start to kind of have a repertoire of items that you want no matter what. So, for example, I kind of know the components that I really like, and I want to try and accumulate them that match the webbing and the cordage and certain things that I have, and you'll have a better cross reference there for other projects. So, for example, I know I really want the anchorable cord lock, and with the anchorable cord lock, I'm going to be using the smallest grow grain that we have. That smallest grow grain can also go into some other components that mount. My favorite webbing is a 1-inch mil spec webbing, so I'm going to accumulate components that kind of work with the 1-inch size of stuff. But and that similarly goes along with materials. So I'm going to pick materials in my, like when I'm sewing at home, that blend for a lot of different projects. So I like to have certain liner materials that can also work as exteriors on really ultralight projects. You want to choose stuff that's going to be able to blend amongst a lot of projects, because once you get to kind of the tier 3 where you're making a lot of custom stuff, you'll accumulate a lot of stuff. And I'm going to talk about some costs of things here. This would be if you were to buy everything, like everything you need for this whole project from scratch with none left over. And likely if you're at this tier, you're going to have a lot of materials left over from other projects and other things that you've done. So the costs aren't always this way, but they could cost up to this amount.
Yeah, the chances that you're making your fully custom ferret, pickleball, cycling, iPad work dog backpack as your first project is pretty unlikely. So by the point that you're confident and ready, for most people, by the point that you're confident and ready, you likely already have cord locks and you already have grow grain. So like Jameson said, these numbers are, I guess, basically if you either lost all your stuff or your first project is going to be probably pretty exciting, but probably gonna be pretty hard if that's your first thing. The ferret might not fit the right way.
All right, so here's some numbers just to give some concrete facts, I guess, to this part of the episode. One of my recent packs I made would have cost about $300.
Jeez, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
That's what happens. Like I was using, I think, EPLX on the outside. I had Venom as a liner. That includes spacer mesh for the shoulder straps. That includes XLPE foam. I use 2 different types of stretch mesh. The Venom stretch mesh on the outside, Lycra stretch mesh on like the shoulder straps or on the water bottle pockets. That includes all the webbing, cordage, hardware, buckles, everything. One thing that this exercise really did for me is reminds me how many materials go into even a simple backpack. Though you're looking at probably 5 to 6 materials, because you're going to have the main material, you're probably going to have an accessory material of some sort, you're going to have stretch materials, spacer mesh, there's going to be foam someplace, and that doesn't include any components. So you're going to probably have more than one type of buckle. You need sternum straps. You're going to need cordage on certain places. That's going to need a cord lock. You're going to have to mount that cord lock. There's a lot of stuff that goes into these. Some of you are saying, duh, absolutely. But that's kind of why the price adds up. I made a recent duffel. It's for my ski boots and helmet and ski equipment, I guess. That was made with 1000D Cordura and RX36. All in, the materials on that were $260.
Jeez, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, that's the last time I'll do it.
That one has like the shoulder straps, like the back panel can unzip and have shoulder straps on it. So again, these are all highly custom things that are made for specific purposes. That duffel bag is cool because you can kind of like clip the sides down and like tighten it down some more.
Is that the one that you made with the custom pocket for your Uncrustables?
I wish I did. That's a good idea.
Oh, I thought you did that. Maybe that was me. Oh no, that was me.
I mean, I like Uncrustables. I don't think I've had them in probably like 15
I
years.
have one in the fridge right now. You want to share it with me after this?
Yeah, can we toast it or air fry it?
No, okay.
That sounds amazing.
It would be good, but it's the best part about the Uncrustables is that they're cold.
Okay.
They're cold and moist from the flash frozen.
All right, we're gonna move on. My fanny pack, my like daily. I mean, I don't wear it daily, but like weekend wear, I guess. Fanny pack. Didn't say that well at all, but
Jameson's at the DMV with his fanny pack.
I would
on.
definitely bring a fanny pack to the DMV.
Okay, that's
I like to walk around with a notebook because I always see ideas for like new sketches of like, ooh, I like that bag. I like the profile. So I like to have like a notebook on me so I can always take down sketches of new projects.
I don't normally carry a notebook because then that would mean that I would have to read what I wrote. And I don't
I
want.
don't write words.
Oh, okay.
It's just like,
It's
ooh,
like
I like this.
hieroglyphics or.
No, I'm like drawing out projects. Like I see like a cool backpack design, I start to sketch out that backpack.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That's
I
cool.
mean, I do like write journal entries and stuff like this is how I feel today. Like I do that too, but I don't read that ever. I don't like reading back. Anyway, the fanny pack that I carry right now, that is EPLX Coyote Tan. It has the mountain reflective stretch. There's a spacer mesh pocket on the back. It's lined with our lilac or our soft purple Venom. All those materials would have been $120, but that has like has like 4 internal pockets and stuff. Again, highly custom. But yeah, that would have cost $120. I have a DCF tarp that's massive. It's like 10 by 10. This is one that's actually kind of close to DCF tarp. That the materials for that all in would have cost about $400, but that's actually on par with other tents or tarps that size. Like a DCF tarp that's 10 by 10 is going to cost that much. My car tarp is the one that I probably save some money on. That's one Silpoly PU 4000. That costs about $100. It's a really fairly inexpensive material for being really high performance, and that's just grosgrain bound pretty much all around. So like one Silpoly and grosgrain are really cheap materials or inexpensive materials.
How
Yeah.
would a that? By the way, that item is really cool. I'm not saying it because I want you to say that in a Bostonian accent.
What?
The car tarp.
I'm not doing that.
Well, why not?
The cat top.
There we go. Yeah, that's a really awesome project. Looking at these, I didn't look at the amounts beforehand of your stuff because I kind of wanted to be surprised and yell "geez." But some of these are actually not that expensive. I mean, of course, it comes with a lot of knowledge, and the amount that you sew is basically a full time job. But
There's that.
that's not that expensive.
I would say the one that was the biggest surprise to me was the tech organizer. I have this half circle tech organizer that has like flat elastic loops for every like one of my cords, like USB-C, USB-A, Lightning. There's a spot for like my portable charger, and then like a little zipper pocket for like little dongles and stuff. That one is made out of Ellis 21 on the outside. It has the orange 210D Gridstop on the inside with a stretch mesh pocket. If you were to buy all that, it's a really small pouch, which is why it's so expensive. But that one is $75 if you include all the materials. But frankly, it's 9 inches wide and like 6 inches tall. I'm making that out of scraps. Like I didn't use a full yard of anything. I made that out of like cuts from other cuts. You know, like you don't need that much material. But
That
yeah,
is a good example though of one where you're making something that's perfectly custom to all yours, like specific
yeah.
uh
My cables, my
your
portable
cables,
charger.
yeah.
Yeah,
And if you were to buy that, like decide you're going to make that from scratch, there's no way you're saving money versus like a pretty nice pouch from Amazon. But that's not the point, right?
exactly. We've said this a little bit, but a different way that I wanted to approach it this time is DIY is a hobby and it's an experience that you want to have. Nobody talks about if you play a sport as an adult, like you just play rec league sports, or if you go hiking. No one talks about like, oh, I saved money because I went hiking versus like doing other stuff. It's something that you just want to do, and that's kind of where DIY for no matter what tier you're in, what it is. Obviously, if you can save money, that's a huge plus. Unfortunately, we all have to worry about money a lot. It's something that's a very real fact of life, but it's something that we want to do. And if it brings you joy, then we're happy to help you find ways to save money and or do that in a way that feels most appropriate to you. So yeah, that's kind of all the info that we have today. I know it's not super concrete, but it just depends on what you want to do. So yeah, you can save. You can spend more money than a custom gear if you're like me and spend 20 hours on a single backpack that probably cost $800 of time and materials, or you can save up to 200% on a Silpoly tarp. The choice is yours. Choose your own adventure.
Thanks for listening to us today. Hopefully you were able to vibe out with us, as they say. But I had a fun time, and if you have any questions about any of the gear that we're talking about in terms of the kits, or if you have any questions for Jameson about his different projects, reach out to us. We'll be happy to talk with you. So thanks for listening, and don't forget to
Hmm?
like.
Oh, like, comment, subscribe. I thought you were going to have me say make good gear, drink good beer. I was like, well, that hasn't been the motto in like 2 years.
Well, that's why I wouldn't have said it.
That's fair. All right, everybody, go make cool stuff. Let us know. We love hearing from you. Talk to you soon.
What a great outro. Goodbye.